Everyone, welcome to another exciting edition of Words, Images, and Worlds, and welcome back to a very special guest. On this episode, we're talking about the second wave of the DeMultiverse, as well as any other titles that come along our path. Delighted to be talking a second time with JM DeMatteis. May I call you JM? Is that okay?
You
All
may
right.
indeed.
Well, thank you for coming back. Thank you for agreeing for a second talk.
Oh, I'm happy to be here. Happy to talk about the DeMultiverse.
Yeah, it's a very exciting universe, and it's interesting to peer into. And I was excited to see that there's a second sort of approach that's coming, a second wave of titles and exploration. So curious to hear. I suppose first of all, what creating in this sort of separate universe, your own universe, has allowed you to do.
This has really been one of the most exciting creative endeavors of my entire career because with the first round, I got to get five new books out into the world. Five new books with five different genres, five great artists, and you just don't get to do that. In fact, as the years passed, it seems like the opportunities for creator-owned work are more and many, but the let's just say the financial rewards of that with a lot of these companies are not very great.
Hmm. Hmm.
So the idea of sort of taking this all into my own hands, I'm working with my friend David Baldy, who created the Spellbound Comics imprint around these books. Um, and removing that wall between the creator and the audience. Kickstarter, you're going straight to the readers. There's no middleman at all. It's just us and them. And it's
Hmm.
it's a great thing. And then to have all this work out there, the exciting thing was we put out the four main The Multiverse books first time around, and then we slipped in a fifth book as well as a bonus. And we have that fifth book, the Edward Gloom Mysteries, will also be a bonus this second time around, although it will be available right from the start. We won't be sneaking it in later. Um, and we took a vote. The idea was that the people that supported the Kickstarter would vote, and they would pick the one book that they wanted to continue.
Hmm.
We also gave them the option to have them all continue. Well, when the votes were all tallied, what got the most votes was all of them.
Love
So
it.
what we're doing now is the second issues of all five books, which is really, really exciting because, first issues, it's like a TV pilot. You can communicate just so much about your world and your characters and what's this going to be. And I know in my head what it's going to be. I said to somebody, it's like, well, it's like you build a foundation, but I'm the architect. I know the whole building. I know
Hmm.
it's going to go up, 150 stories with, all these other extensions. And so when you're writing the first issue, I'm seeing everything that's coming. The readers aren't. So with the second issues, we get to expand those universes a bit more, dig deeper into the stories and give people a deeper sense of what these stories are going to be and who these characters are. So that's really, really fun for me.
Love it.
Creatively, you can't ask for anything more than to just be, and because they're all in different genres. A Wisdom is a supernatural Western. Any Man on the surface seems to be the most traditional superhero story, although there's a lot of twists within twists within twists within that. Um, Godsend, I would say, is sort of like, Jack Kirby's New Gods meets The Matrix.
Hmm.
That's my one-liner. Um, Layla in the Afterlands is a fantasy adventure that takes place in the afterlife, and the Edward Gloom Mysteries is sort of like how do I just almost like a cyberpunk Frankenstein story, except Frankenstein happens to be a poet, a philosopher, a musician, and the sweetest soul in the world, and
Hmm.
also a detective investigating mysteries. So they're all so different, and each artist has their own unique style. We've got Tom Mandrake on Wisdom, we've got Sean McManus on Layla, we've got David Baldy on Any Man. Matthew Dow Smith did our first issue of Godsend. Now we've got Scott Koblish on the second issue, and
Hmm.
then Vasilis Godzilis, this wonderful Greek artist, on the Edward Bloom Mysteries. So fantastic group of artists. We have all these alternate covers. I've only announced the first few. We have Patch Zurcher doing, just released it on social media, the alternate cover for Wisdom. Liam Sharp is doing again the cover for our collected edition. And Derek Robertson, co-creator of The Boys, has done the alternate cover for Any Man. And then over the next few days, we will announce the other cover artists. So I'm working with these amazing, amazing artists on
Yeah.
stories that I love and having the time of my life. It's just great. So the good news is too, for people that might have missed it the first time around, all the first issues will be available as part of the Kickstarter. And we will again, once again, do a collected edition. Although it hasn't been officially announced, Danny Fingeroth, who was the Spider-Man editor at Marvel for many years, recently wrote a wonderful biography of Stan Lee. He's
Mhm.
writing the introduction for the collected edition. And so it's just fun. It's just really fun. And that's, if you're doing comics, it had better be fun.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And it sounds like this gives you the chance to work with a number of creative people that I'm sure it's rewarding to continue those relationships and explore creatively.
Yeah, oh, absolutely, absolutely. Like Sean McManus and I first worked together back early 90s on Dr. Fate at DC. He's
Mhm.
always been one of my favorite collaborators. And so, and Sean is one of those guys that you just watch him over the years just get better and better and better. And it was great to begin with, you know. Tom Mandrake is someone I have always admired his work, always. And we
Yeah.
never ever had a chance to work together. And, when we putting this together, here's a guy that does great supernatural stuff, has a history of doing great Westerns, perfect for Wisdom.
Mhm.
David Baldion and I worked together on the Ben Reilly Spider-Man miniseries at Marvel a couple of years ago. It was the first I knew of him, and his work just blew me away. Just loved it. So we pulled him into this. And it's the first time Scott Koblish and I have worked together as well, and he's just done such a fantastic job on Godsend. And Vasilis and I have worked on a bunch of things together over the years, and this has been a Edward Gloom Mysteries is one we've been nursing in the corner for
Mhm.
quite some time. So finally getting that out into the world. So I hope that people, if you are a fan of my work or a fan of the work of any of these artists, please come along and join us. And there'll be lots of extras, obviously, and rewards on the Kickstarter, and it'll be a fun ride. But I tell you, once it starts, we go live Tuesday, the 9th.
Mhm.
For the next month, it gets very intense around here because we really have to stay on top of things on social media constantly.
Yeah.
So somehow I'm going to have to get all my work done and do this. But luckily, I have David, my partner, working with me. So between the two of us, we should be able to bang that drum unrelentingly. I apologize in advance to anyone that thinks I'm posting too much. But what I learned the first time was you post something at 1 o'clock on Tuesday, by 1:20, there's 1,000 different people there
Mhm.
that did not see the first post, so
Yeah.
you really have to keep getting it out there. Because I saw a month goes by and then someone goes, "Oh, did you have a Kickstarter? I didn't know that." And I'm thinking, "Oh my God, I didn't shut up for a month." So I've learned that you really have to beat the drum. And I think, as most of us as creative people, it goes against our nature to do that so much.
Yeah.
We're not PR people, we're writers and artists, but you have to do it. So I'm getting my drum out and I'm banging it.
Yeah, absolutely. There are many times that I'll see something on like a Thursday that was posted on a Sunday, and I'm like, how did this not immediately come in my feed? So,
Yeah, yeah, I
uh,
know. So you never know. It's a tricky thing. It's a tricky thing.
yeah. No, now, I just had Scott Koblish on a
Oh,
couple of
okay.
weeks ago. So, such an interesting knowledge of the comics medium and using visuals. And the other thing I'll say about him is this incredible dedication to details and expansive artwork. So glad to hear that he's continuing collaboration with you as well.
Yeah, and to step into a book that someone else did the first issue and have to come in with the second issue and build on that is a challenge. And he did just a fantastic job. Very, very energetic, great storytelling. Just did a wonderful job. And Matthew Dow Smith, who did the first issue, who was unable to do the second. Well, I can announce it now. What the heck? He's doing the alternate cover for Godsend #2. So
Oh,
Matt is
awesome.
still involved with us as well. So I'm
Awesome.
very
Awesome.
excited about that.
Glad
So
to hear that.
you just got our DeMultiverse exclusive because I
There
haven't
it
announced
is.
that yet.
There it is. Yeah, I have a sort of a process question based on what you were saying there.
Sure.
You're talking about having the entire building in mind. So it sounds like you kind of know the direction of all five of these stories. Do you start with the endpoint in mind? Is it that kind of planning process for you?
You know how it goes. I like to know, like when I get the idea for an original series, I'm going to sit down and just start writing up notes. When some years back when Wisdom came to me, and it literally came to me, I woke up in the morning and saw this movie in my head. I went, "What is this? Oh, look, it's a Western. Oh, look, it's a supernatural Western. That's really cool. I better run in my office and write this down." I wrote up like 50 pages of stuff, you know? So you like to have, I call them tent poles. I want to know where I'm starting. I want to know the direction it's heading. I want to know what I think the ending is. but I try not to be attached to those tent poles, because what I hope for is that at some point the story kind of rears up like a horse, and gallops off in its own direction, and I just
Hmm.
go along for the ride, so that the things that I thought were going to happen won't happen. Something completely unexpected happens. And that's when I know things are really, really working well, when my
Yeah.
story rears up and surprises me. So you hope for those moments. So yeah, I have a blueprint for all of these, but I also know there's a certain point where you just take out the match and you burn the blueprint and see where the story's going to lead you.
Love that. Love that. Lovely metaphor there as well. Yeah. Uh, so what's it like to manage to sort of balance this many stories within a universe? Plus, you have additional work that's on the way for DC, for Marvel. You are a very busy person.
You know, it's just what I do. And we had a chunk of time between the last Kickstarter on this one, which gave me room to work on all these scripts. Some of them, like Everglue Mysteries, was already done even before we started this second round. Godsend, I had the next script probably half done already, and the others, then I just dug in because I knew where they were going, and so that's fine. I'm one of those people. I'm always happier when I'm busy. The
Mhm,
more I
mhm.
have to do, unless it's so crushing that I'm having a nervous breakdown. But in general, the more I have to do, the happier I am. So to have these to work on, to be working on my Spider-Man projects at Marvel, I have a uh, Shadow of the Green Goblin. The final issue will be out in July. I have a
Mhm,
Batman series, Robin Lives, which comes out next week, July 10th.
mhm,
Um, I just wrapped up an episode of the new Cape Crusader animated series that's premiering on Amazon in August. Although mine is for the second season, so they already renewed the second season, so you won't see my episode for a while. So yeah, busy, and I'm working on a new novella as well. So very
Wow.
busy, very happy, and I look forward also to continuing the DeMultiverse after we're done with this round. But I can't even think about continuing because I'm so focused on getting this stuff out into the world.
Nice, nice. Well, excited to hear that you're contributing to the Cape Crusader as well. That looks like a great series.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, I'm not
yeah.
allowed to really say anything, but
Oh
it
yeah,
looks
yeah,
great. It does, and which we'll all see very, very soon. Once you have guys like Bruce Timm and James Tucker running the show over there, it's going to be good.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Um, are you so as you're organizing your thoughts and these tent poles, are you a journal person? Are you a spreadsheet person? Or is it just sort of like out there in the ether?
Well, like I said, I have my notes. I sit
Yeah.
down, I get the idea, and I've said this before, but it really is. It's a constant process of surrendering to the unconscious, because that's where all this material comes from.
Hmm.
You know,
Hmm.
so I write, like I said, I write up my notes, I get it all together. But then once you start constructing the story, as I said a few minutes ago, it just leads you out someplace else. And the moment comes along where you go, I didn't know that. That's the
Hmm.
best moment. That's always the best moment, when you as the writer say, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
you're surprised that way. So yeah, I know spreadsheets, things like that. That's not who I am. I'm just sort of like, okay. And often just what happens is, like, I'm working on this novella now, and I'll just be laying in bed, or I'll be in the shower, or I'll be taking a walk. And, oh, that's what's going to happen in that scene. Or I woke up this morning with this insight into this one crucial part of the story. It's like I see it like little bubbles bubbling up from the unconscious, and suddenly it reaches
Mhm.
your conscious mind and it pops, and there's the idea,
Yeah.
and then the conscious mind has to come back in, because that's the guy who's got the hammer and the chisel and has to really shape this thing and make sure that sentence is just right and that the visuals play just perfectly. But the real inspiration just comes bubbling up from the unconscious, and that's my favorite part of the process. Sometimes I think if someone would just pay me to just have ideas. Here, have another idea. Give me some money. Let someone else go write it. I'm just going to sit here and have ideas all day, because
Love
it's
it.
it's it's just it's a fun thing to see those movies in my head and see where they're going to go.
Yeah, yeah. A think tank consulting, it sounds like.
Right, right. I wouldn't mind. I really wouldn't mind that. That's kind of a fun thing.
Yeah. Now the novellas have really expanded this ability, or at least my knowledge of your ability to sort of explore science fiction, fantasy, and some of these worlds, and to do so in a way that uses the visuals. You still have art pieces in there, but also allows you to just create on the page.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, once you get into prose, all the guardrails are off. It's really just the writer and his imagination. Now, as you said, the two novellas, both of which are available on Amazon. The first one was called The Excavator, and Vasilis, who's doing the Evergloom Mysteries, did 10 beautiful painted illustrations for that and the cover. That was great. The second one is called The Witness, and the great J.H. Williams III
Hmm.
did the
Hmm.
illustrations and the cover for that. So it's it's great to have those beautiful illustrations, but the story is the story, They're illustrating a story that's already written.
Yeah.
And to have that freedom to just follow my imagination and my heart and hopefully my skill set. I hadn't done when I started working on the excavator, I hadn't done prose in about 10 years. I had uh, a young adult fantasy called Imaginalis that came out back in 2010.
Hmm.
So it was like a process of rebuilding those muscles. And then when I got to the witness, those muscles, were there, and I got to build them up even more. So now on this third one, hopefully, well, hopefully those muscles are a little even stronger now.
Absolutely.
It's like doing
Absolutely.
it's doing writing push-ups every day or something.
Hmm.
So just so people know, I call them supernatural thrillers. I'm a big fan of the Twilight Zone, of stories about regular people who take a left turn into something fantastic.
Hmm.
Rooted in
Hmm.
the real world, but something happens and things start to get strange. And both of these stories are that. They're not fantasy like Tolkien like fantasy. They're not science fiction. They're not out in spaceships. It's real people in the real world taking that step through that thin membrane of what we call reality into something other. And
Yeah.
that's what this new one is about also.
Yeah. Yeah. It makes for really interesting stories and something that keeps you thinking as well.
Yeah, and I like to challenge myself. So it's been a challenge each time I've set off. And this one I'm working on now, I thought same thing. I thought it was one thing when I started. In fact, I had originally written it as a TV pilot, and it's a completely different story now. The basic tent poles are the same, but the story is so incredibly different. What it's about is so much more than I ever thought it was about when I had the other version of it. And
Hmm.
again, I'm surprised. Oh, this is what this story is about. I'm going to do that. And I see other ideas from other stories, creeping in, and suddenly it's becoming this whole different beast. And it's challenging, and sometimes it's frightening, but it's fun.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah. I love that.
it doesn't matter how many years I've been doing this, there's always that element of like, how do you do this? I have to write
Right.
what? I can't do this. No, I don't know how have I done this before? I have no idea. But eventually something clicks and off you go again. But there's always that process. We might have talked about this before, but I liken it to when you watch a dog that's about to lie down on the rug, and it walks in circles and it
Uh-huh.
walks in circles and then plop, it plops down. So for me, the process is a lot of walking in circles, and that walking in circles, I learned over the years, it's not me being blocked, or it's the giving the unconscious room to breathe and work on the story. And that's,
Hmm.
there was a week or so where it looked like I wasn't getting anything done on this thing. And but I can feel, it's a weird sensation. I can feel it in the back of my head. I don't know how to explain it. It's like I can feel my unconscious at work in the back of my head. So I
That's
know
cool.
that even though nothing is being written in that moment, except maybe some notes or something, the story is being actively worked on. It's just my conscious mind is not involved yet.
Yeah.
It's a fascinating process.
Yeah. And then you get to bring it out, crystallize it once it's baked in the oven.
Exactly, exactly. And then,
Yeah.
then you have to, like I said, get out the hammer and chisel and make sure it's just right.
Yeah. Yeah. If I may ask, without any spoilers or anything like that, what was it like to revisit the Robin Lives? I mean, that whole storyline is one of the punches to the gut of comics from the
Yeah.
1980s and 1990s. So curious about just in general what that was like to tap into.
Yeah, it's been an interesting ride. It's because we're picking up where the original story left off, except this is the version where Jason Todd lived, where the Joker didn't succeed in killing him.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
where does that leave us? That leaves us with a kid who's half dead, who watched his mother die, who's traumatized. In a lot of ways, it's a story about trauma and how we deal with trauma, and not just Jason, but Bruce Wayne as well, because he has to deal with the fact that he took this child, and into these situations that led to this?
Hmm. Hmm.
And that's a question, that hasn't often been deeply explored. What are you doing, Bruce? What are you thinking?
Right.
Bringing these kids along with you into these horrible, horrible situations. And this really pushes him to the brink. And of course, we got the Joker out there as the wild card.
Hmm. Hmm.
So they've already released a preview. So the very first page is the Joker gets a bullet in the head and dies. And then we go back to figure out the whole story is what led us to that moment and who
Yeah.
didn't. Um, and we take Jason and Bruce on a very long, deep, intense journey that's very psychological, very emotional, very traumatic. But of course, lots of Batman villains, lots of slam and bang, and a lot of fun along the way. Nightwing plays a big role in it as well. We introduce some new characters as well, and it's a fun ride. I hadn't worked on Batman in quite a few years, and suddenly I was working on this miniseries. I'm working on Cape Crusader, so I was
Hmm.
up to my neck in Batman. It was really fun to be back in Gotham City after all this time.
Nice, nice. Well, looking forward to seeing that, of course. And circling back to the multiverse, I know that you have a campaign kicking off next week. So, any details about that you'd like to share? Places where people can find information, support the work, and see
Sure.
the world that you're creating.
You can find me on social media. I'm on Twitter, Blue Sky, Instagram, Threads. I have my website, jmdmateis.com. So lots of info there. We'll have the Kickstarter link very, very shortly so we can share that with people. And yeah, so like I said, especially now, you'll see me quite a bit on social media with lots of information. If you just jump over to my website right now, or you go to spellboundcomics.com, the information is out there. You can learn more about the stories, about the artists that are contributing, and I really hope that people come along, because the more people come along, the more of a chance that we'll get to the third issue and the fourth issue and complete all these miniseries. And
Mhm.
in my mind, just because one miniseries is done doesn't mean these stories are done, because I have, stories that can go on for years with these characters and with these worlds. So I hope that we get even more people along this time, and that we can just continue this for years to come.
Love it, love it. May it be so. May it be so. Glad to
May
share
it be
about it.
so.
Yeah.
As my mother used to say, from your mouth to God's ear. Yeah,
That's
yeah,
right. That's right. And such an exciting time as you were talking about where folks can go and expand their creative wings. You can accomplish the vision that you want to, and you're continuing to build into these worlds that have existed for some time as well. So very exciting things.
yeah, yeah. It's fun to be. I've always, for years, from very early in my career, I've gone back and forth between my own stuff
Hmm.
and the Marvel and DC stuff, and my creator-owned stuff, and TV stuff, and movie stuff, and pro stuff. Yet, the reason I've been able to do it as long as I've done it is because I've mixed it up. I
Yeah.
think if I had done just one particular thing, like if all I'd done was write superheroes from Marvel and DC, I might have burned out a while ago. You
Hmm.
know, but
Hmm.
by mixing it up this way, it keeps me engaged, it keeps me interested, and it keeps me creative.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, glad to hear it. And may the creating continue. And glad to have you back as hopefully issues 3, 4, 5, and beyond are out into the world.
Yeah, thank you so much. I thank you for the opportunity to let people know a bit more about the DeMultiverse.